Okay, today we're going to talk about how to complete a quadratic trinomial, make it into a perfect square. Hopefully you have remembered this. In order a quadratic trinomial look like these. And the last constant has to be half of the middle coefficient. In this case will be 5. Okay, needs to be this half of that number has to be a 5. That's a positive 10, so half of that is positive 5. When you square it, and that number, if that number is 25, then this quadratic trinomial will be a perfect square um, quadratic trinomial. Okay, so this is not it, because that's 30, that's 40. This type of problem is actually pretty easy. Okay, what about this one? Yes, this is it. Okay, this is not it, because 50 is no good, 40 is no good, 30 is no good, 25 is perfect. So if you rewrite this, this is going to turn into, since it's plus, it's x plus 5 squared. Okay, so if you want to do a map, and you can do it like that, and if this is x, this is plus 5, and you don't have to do this, all right? But if you want to see how it works, this is one way of looking at it. So how big is this one? This is x squared, right? So width times length is x. So what about this one? Is 5 times x, so it's 5x. And how big is this room? Width times length, 5 times x, so it's positive 5x. And this one is 5 times 5, so this one is 25. So add all these four boxes together, what do you get? So you have x squared right here. You have a 25, positive 25, you get it right there. And those two are like terms. You can put them together. So 5 and half 5, you get 10x. Okay, so therefore, and let's take a look at next problem. Okay, so this one looks, it's a quadratic trinomial, and we asking you what magic number we need. So this quadratic trinomial will be a perfect square. It's very similar to the problems we just did, okay? So again, so half of this is going to be what? Negative 5. It's going to be a negative 5. But negative 5, you have to square it, okay? So once you square it up, it turned into what? Again, it's pretty much the same problem, but just asked you in two different ways, okay? So even that's a negative 10, negative 10 squared is negative 5. Once you square it, it turns into a positive number again, okay? So the third number, as you realize, will always, it's something squared, so it's always going to be a positive value, okay? So those two problems, if you see on a quiz, are really easy. And just remember this, half of the middle number squared. If that turned out to be the third number here as the constant, you have a perfect square on your hand. All right. So, okay, let me erase this. And so let's go and look at a few more questions. Okay. So that's not too bad. Okay, let's move on. Let's take a look at 3, 4. Okay. Actually, And this one does not need all that space. Okay, number 3. So as you realized, okay, a linear function is this mx plus b. So it's 2x. Let's say you have equation, okay? 2x plus 6 equal to 0. So that's a linear function. How many answers do we have? You have 1, okay? Because x to the first power, you have 1 answer. And the question is, which of the following equation has possibly 2 solutions, right? Now, quadratic equations, like the problems we have here, x squared plus 3x plus 2 equal to 0, and that potentially has 2 solutions, okay? So because the highest degree term is squared, so as you realize, if you factor it, you have 2 zeros, okay? So cubic function, so if you have x cubed, let's say, equal plus 3x squared and so on, minus 5x plus 4. Let's just, if that equal to 0, you will have what? You will have actually 3 possible solutions, okay? So number of possible solutions is pretty much paired up with what's the highest degree of power of each of those functions. So linear function is first degree, 1 answer. So which of those? So that's not it, okay? This only have 1 solution. This has 3 solutions. What about this one? This one, it's a proportional. You can actually do cross multiplication. Once you did that, you have what? X equal to 6. Okay. Again, this one, X is to the first degree. So this one has 1 solution only. Okay. So that's not it. So what's the answer for that one? The correct answer is B. Quadratic equations, the ones have potentially 2 solutions. Okay. All right. So this is also pretty straightforward. Now, this problem, and this is in standard form, okay? And vertex form is this. Vertex form is you have to have x plus something plus a number, okay? We call h squared and plus k, okay? So we have to do something and turn that into this form. So that is the vertex form. Okay, so that's not quite like it. And you realize there's a perfect square here. So first thing first, do yourself a favor and write x squared and x term, okay? Just leave some space. Put the positive 30 way in the back, okay? And you just ask yourself, and what just like the other problem, what is the C value? Okay. I'm going to add a number and we're going to immediately subtract that. So to not change this expression. So half of 5, if a half of 10 is 5, 5 squared is 25, just like what we did in 1 and 2. So the constant, the magic C value has got to be 25. I can't just randomly add 25 into something. So if I add 25, I immediately subtract 25. And you realize this now turn into x plus 5. Okay. If you were following me on review problem number 2, So, so half of 10 put in here. If it's negative, that's a negative 5. Okay, so x squared plus 10x plus 25 is x plus 5 squared. What's negative 25 and plus 30? Put it together, it turned into a positive 5. Okay, are we having this now? Yes, already. You just finished writing the vertex form for x squared plus 10x plus 30 into noun. This is the vertex form for it, okay? So if on a quiz you have multiple choices offering various vertex forms, and this is the winning ticket, okay? And um, we have done quite a few problems just like that, okay? So um, now the last problem, number 5, find x values that are answers to the following quadratic equations. So basically, this will test your knowledge on how to factor it completely, okay? So if you can factor it, that's the quickest way. So, and sometimes if you cannot be factored, then you will have to use the quadratic formula, or you can write it into uh, vertex form. But for preparing for this quiz, for the purpose of that, the problem you're going to run into in the quiz will be factorable. Okay, so we're making it pretty straightforward. So your job is they ask you to solve it. You want to factor the quadratic trinomial on the left first. Remember the worksheet we did in class, okay? And so it's going to be x and x, all those, half of the occupants of those two uh, parentheses already, okay? So it's going to be x and x, and x and x. So remember, you have that piece of paper given to you in class. If you're not sure, what you're going to do is you're looking for two numbers, multiply, give you 24, and add it together, give you 10, okay? So if you look in a multiplication table, 4 times 6 is 24, okay? And 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 so positive 6, positive 4 gives you a positive 24. And positive 4, positive 6 added together is positive 10. So there you go. You got that, okay? So you factored it. Then you have to use the principle of zero product. If the two factors multiply equal to 0, and how would this work? The scenario is that the principle of zero product. If the first factor is 0, or the second factor is 0, and it will have worked because 0 times anything equal to 0. Okay, so you set this up, use the principle of zero product, and then once you got here, it's pretty easy. You can do mental math. What plus 6 equal to 0? So it got to be equal to its opposite, okay? Negative 6. And this one going to be equal to negative 4. Okay? And this also confirmed, number 3, only the quadratic functions will potentially give you two solutions. Okay, great. So this is all positive numbers. It's easy finding two positive numbers. Now, what if it's the same? Two numbers multiply, give you positive 24, and yet combine them together, give you a negative 10. Just realize that two negative numbers, when they multiply together, give you a positive number. So here, negative 6, negative 4 gives you positive 24, and combine them together, and guess what? Turn into a negative 10. All right? So again, you want to do is use the principle of zero product, set up those two factors individually to 0 and solve those. You can do that pretty quickly and do some mental math, and you realize that the answer is for this one is 6, and 4 minus 4 equal to 0. So if x equal to 4, it would have worked. Okay, so there you go. Okay, what about this one? Multiply give you a negative number. So one of those numbers is going to be negative, and one of those numbers is going to be positive. And those two numbers combined together has to be a positive 2. 6 and 4, if you have to, so the bigger number has to be positive, okay? Because otherwise you're going to have a what? Negative 2. So again, so you just follow that and write x plus 6 principal of 0 product equal to 0, or x minus 4 equal to 0. And you will have your two answers are, doing mental math, are negative 6 and positive 4. Okay. So there you go. That's this one. Now, the last one. You multiply, give you a negative number, and combine them together is also a negative number. So how would that happen? In a 4 and 6, the bigger number has to be a negative number, right? So there you go. If that's the case, it would have worked. Okay. If the negative number is the larger number, negative times positive, negative 24, negative 6, positive 4 gives you a negative 2. And principal of 0 product, set that up equal to 0. And you have set the second factor up equal to 0. Ooh, handwriting is not the best. So you have two solutions, mental math. 6 minus 6 equal to 0. And negative 4 plus 4 is going to be equal to 0. Okay. There you go. I give you 4 different scenarios. And you're going to have to factor first. Here's the principal of 0 product. Set each factor to 0 and solve them. Okay, so that's how you solving quadratic equations by factoring. And you need to know this for to do well on this quiz. Okay, so this is the review for a mock quiz. If you did this all correctly, you should do great on the real quiz. Okay, we will see you next time.